You may have heard of Florida Man at some point. This may be a phrase that you've come across. It used to mean a guy in flip-flops with a mullet who led cops on a high-speed car chase with an alligator strapped to the roof of his Oldsmobile. But now it's anyone fleeing the tyranny of poorly run blue states in search of freedom, gun rights, and 0% state income tax. Our country was set up so that states, as you know, would be laboratories of our democracy, that states would be able to try different policies and people could move depending on what they wanted, what they liked, and how it was all going. Well, it's amazing to me that you have such a clear winner here with the state of Florida, as well as some other red states that are doing quite well. A lot of Californians leaving for Idaho, for example. You've had a big surge of people to Montana, which is actually not that red as a state, but it is majority Republican. And this is going on at a time when we've really been reliant on state governments in ways that we haven't seen in a very long time. Because of the COVID pandemic, the state's authority to take action on health matters has really made a big difference in our lives. We had been, especially conservatives, focused on the tyranny of the federal government for a very long time. But as we see, state governments can be either protectors of your rights and liberties, or they can trample on them even more. And the states that have had the most control over day-to-day life during the pandemic, the ones that have taken the most extreme measures and that have favored the leftist authoritarian point of view, are big losers in all of this. And Governor Ron DeSantis down in Florida is a beacon, dare I say, the Sunshine State is a beacon of light for the rest of the country, for what is possible, for what could have been in New York, in California, in Illinois, in many places. And he's running with it. People have been asking me, what is the future of the GOP? And I keep saying, nobody knows, which I understand is an easy answer to a very complicated question. But we still have this impeachment trial of Donald Trump coming up, which will definitively, one way or the other, tell us whether he can run for office again. And even if he were to be barred from holding office in the future, which I don't think will happen, his children will likely run for office, one or several of them. So the Trump name, the Trump brand will continue on. But there are others that you are seeing now who I think are going to be increasingly looked to for leadership in the GOP. And Governor Ron DeSantis is at the top of that list right now. He hasn't been involved in all the election disputes and all that craziness that happened after November. He was busy running his state and running it quite well. And I've experienced some of this. I've made a couple of trips now down to Florida to see what it's like to be in a place where people are largely living their lives despite the pandemic. And now DeSantis is going even a few steps further by saying that he's going to take actions that, let's be honest, should have been taken by Republicans when they had a majority in the House and the Senate and the Trump presidency, but they didn't. Big tech's control, its financial contributions to politicians, and just its overall influence on our entire system is hard to overstate. And the GOP has a lot of answers that are required at this point as to why they didn't do more. Why didn't they take action when they could have? We heard a lot of talk about Section 230. Nothing was done. Well, DeSantis is doing something. He is pointing out, first of all, this is necessary for everybody to understand. Everyone across the country needs to know that big tech is now openly at war with conservative ideas and speech. They're not going to ban everybody. They're just going to ban selectively to chill the speech of other people. You don't have to kick everybody off. You just kick off a few prominent people here and there for their wrongthink, and everyone else gets the message and they fall in line. DeSantis spoke earlier this week about this. Here's what he said. Play 13.
At the turn of the 21st century, online technology represented tools to liberate Americans from reliance on distrusted legacy media outlets. As social media proliferated over the past decade, citizens could directly connect with large numbers of people and could cut out corporate media outlets entirely. Over the years, however, these platforms have changed from neutral platforms that provided Americans with the freedom to speak to enforcers of preferred narratives. Consequently, these platforms have played an increasingly decisive role in elections and have negatively impacted Americans who dissent from orthodoxies favored by the big tech cartel.
Not allowed to break from it. Not allowed to say that you disagree with the dominant narrative, or else they punish you. And for people who think that this only affects, and I believe this has been one of the challenges on the right, because we're just less active on a lot of these platforms. Our people, so to speak, I mean, Republican voters are far outnumbered by Democrats on platforms like Twitter and Instagram, although Instagram's catching up a bit. Facebook is where you would still find a lot of conservatives, but as you know, Facebook is now as bad an offender as any of the others. But this affects you no matter what your business is. You could run a flower shop and you say the wrong thing about COVID policy, and all of a sudden you're not able, your account is shut down. Well, if you need that account to promote what your store does, you could be put out of business pretty quickly. And if you say the wrong thing, you could also end up getting a pile-on from social media, and they'll never stop that, right? They won't try to prevent people from having their lives ruined by the social media mob. So there's a lot of consequences even for folks in their day-to-day from this, no matter who you are, no matter what you do for a living. And it's deeply un-American. We need to understand that's the way we should speak about this. It is deeply un-American for companies to suppress political speech when they exist and they created themselves. I mean, they were built, they made promises around being free exchange of idea platforms. So they essentially lied to us. I mean, this was all a bait and switch. They said, oh no, as long as you don't do anything illegal, as long as you're not doing something that we could all agree is egregious, death threats, putting illegal content online, things like that. As long as you're not doing that, we'll let you share your ideas. No, then they changed because the little woke children who run these companies now, because even though they're not necessarily the ones at the top of the org chart, they're so vehement in their ideas. I mean, they're so absolutely scornful of people with different points of view that they'll just torch anyone who gets in their way, including people in their own company who try to be a little bit more adult, people who try to be a little bit more fair-minded about all of this. DeSantis telling everybody that cancellation can happen to anyone, and this needs to stop. Play 14.
Hunter Biden's story was true, okay? We now know it was true. And the typical corporate media outlets, they just chose to ignore it. Obviously, they wanted to beat Trump. They had a view on the election. They didn't want to give it any air. So we rely on social media to go around that, not let corporate legacy media outlets control the discourse and let us speak. So you had the New York Post to run it, and you couldn't get any traction. You couldn't get any reach on it because big tech put their thumb on the scale. So that was true. What they said at the time, it's a conspiracy, or it's based on hacked information. Are you kidding me? You're trying to tell me if there was hacked information that could damage me, you guys wouldn't print it? Give me a break. You can whiz on my leg, but don't tell me it's raining. You guys would print it every single day if you could. And big tech would allow it to proliferate every single day, 24/7. So it's not being done on a principled basis. And it's not, there's threats on me. And it only gets taken down if law enforcement goes and tells them to do it. Otherwise, it just stays up. They're not moderating any of that. So they haven't done a good job in it. The thumb's always on the scale in one direction, and we just need to bring some protection for folks. I really, really worry when you have a business owner that may rely on some of these tools to do small business. If they engage in wrongthink or they go to the wrong political event, then all of a sudden they can act in concert and just take you off. You need to have protection against that.
And he's not just speaking about this. This isn't just a rhetorical thing. He's going to push for action at the state level in Florida to protect people. states, Facebook and these other companies, they're operating in Florida. And so he wants the state legislature to start creating protections in that state for your data against political discrimination. I mean, ultimately, what we really have to do is wherever we can create categories or add a category of political discrimination to anti-discrimination law. And I know that some people say, no, but that's not the libertarian view, is that private businesses should be able to do. Yeah, but they can't. And that's never going to change. So we can either create protections for more people so that we have actually some hope of being able to win this political and cultural fight over the long term of free speech, or we can just continue to suffer and get crushed. So DeSantis is saying that they're going to start doing things in Florida. He wants the state legislature, to go along with this, to create protections for people from big tech. This is the beginning of what needs to happen. People ask me, how do we deal with this, or what are the next steps? We need to sue them. There needs to be financial pain, or at least the likely prospect of financial pain. That has to happen. There have to be consequences for the kinds of censorship, for the overreach that we're seeing, or else they'll keep just doing it. There was this idea, and I've been telling you this from the very beginning. Oh, don't worry. Once the election stuff is over, once Joe Biden's president, they're going to let people go back to normal. No, they're not. Why would they? They got away with it. They were able to exercise these companies in concert with the Democrats. They're able to team up and exercise power. Now their guy, Joe Biden's in office. You think they're going to back off now? You think that they really view what they did as anything other than a huge win? No. That's why you've got to have Republicans in places where they do have power and control to wield it in defense of liberty. Passivity when liberty is under assault is not a virtue. And a lot of conservatives, I think, have adopted this position of, well, just let the market speak, or, well, just let things play out and we'll see. Well, we are seeing, because that had been largely the approach, and it is a disaster. And it hurts individuals. It hurts people. It ruins their livelihoods. It destroys their business models. I mean, they kicked Parler off the internet, and people were cheering this on in tech circles as if somehow this had achieved something. Meanwhile, Facebook was more of a place where there was conspiracy hatched about the Capitol Hill riot, but it didn't matter because they were still trying to just kick off Parler, because Parler won't play by the actual rules, meaning whatever Democrats want. Those are the only real rules. The principle is the Democrats have power and they will crush you if you don't do what they want. That's the only principle they abide by. DeSantis knows this, and he's had enough of it. Play 12.
Is this going to be a big fight in the legislative session? Hopefully we'll be able to get a lot of support. I think most folks do want protections for their privacy and their data. I think most folks want protections from being deplatformed. And it's not just being banned from Twitter or something. As we've seen, these companies can act, they can collude, they can deny you, if you're a small business, of payment processing, the ability to use email and text. So what, you go to a rally that they don't like, or you engage in wrongthink, and all of a sudden your flower business is decapitated for a month because they take action.
That is what is happening in this country. The left is a totalitarian political ideology in America right now. They don't care that you are suffering. They don't care that you don't have freedom. They advocate for more of this. They demand more of this. So we can either continue to lose, continue to be on our back, the back of our heels, and hope that somehow they just get tired of this and stop, or we can find ways to fight back. We can find ways to make these organizations, and eventually, of course, these Democrat politicians, but for now, it would be helpful just to make the companies that are doing the bidding of the far left in America, make them stop, because there's a consequence. There's a cost to what they're doing. Right now, you know what the only cost is? They win, we lose, and conservatives say they're going to retreat from public life. That's not the answer. Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.